Taoiseach, today People for Profit and Solidarity TDs launched an online petition calling on your government to abandon plans to cut or taper the 350 pandemic payment, at least until the pandemic has passed and all the employment losses and economic impacts of the pandemic have been overcome. And we further call in that petition for the payment to be extended to groups who have been unfairly excluded from it, most notably those over 66, those under 18 and people in the gig economy and precarious work who have been unfairly excluded. And we further call for a review, because we believe the 350 payment figure, which the government was forced to increase to, was an admission that it really is impossible for people to live any kind of dignified existence below that. And as Social Justice Ireland have pointed out, huge numbers of pensioners, job seekers, people on disability are living effectively on poverty payments. So I'm looking for that commitment, particularly in response to the clear hints that have been coming from yourself, from Pascal Donoghue and Regina Doherty about cuts or tapering in the COVID payment. Wouldn't it be completely unjust, Taoiseach, to further cut the income of workers who have lost their jobs through no fault of their own before this pandemic has been overcome and the full economic impact of job losses have been overcome? And will you agree that there will be no cuts or no tapering until we've overcome this pandemic?
Deputy, I think I answered that question in response to Deputy MacDonald earlier. We acknowledge that this payment is unprecedented, one of the highest in the world, cannot go on forever. That would not be affordable for our taxpayers. But we also acknowledge that it cannot be removed until people have the opportunity to return to their jobs. And lots of people will not have that opportunity this side of the middle of June. So it will be necessary to extend it. That might be a decision for this government. It might be a decision for the next one. We'll have to see how things develop in the next couple of weeks. In relation to people who are in the gig economy, they're self-employed, they can qualify, and lots of people who are self-employed have qualified for this payment. The amount 350 was not chosen for the reasons the Deputy contends. The amount 350 was chosen because that's roughly 70% of the average income of people working in the sectors most affected. That is retail, hospitality and construction, and accommodation and food. So that's how we came up with that figure of 70%. What we originally wanted to do was to give people 70% of what they earned before. It wasn't possible to administer that. People would have waited weeks and weeks and weeks for any payment at all, so we decided on a round figure. That has created an anomaly. There are a lot of people, maybe 25% of people in receipt of that payment are actually getting paid more now in their pandemic employment payment than they were in their working. They're mainly part-time workers. It's not a bad thing, not embarrassed about that. I'm happy we did it, but it is an anomaly that will have to be dealt with in due course. And of course, there's the issue of the over 60s that you mentioned.
First of all, you haven't given a clear commitment that there will be no cuts or tapering until the pandemic is over, and until all the employment lost as a result of the pandemic has been restored. You should give a commitment, and I'm asking for the commitment that the over 66s and the under 18s who are being unfairly discriminated against get the payment also, and that many workers in the gig economy who didn't happen to be working at the time but might have been working a week or two later would also get the payment. And can I add, in addition to that, could you also give some sort of serious response to the plight of the Debenhams workers and indeed other workers who could face cynical exploitation by their employers of trying to throw them on the scrap heap using the COVID-19 emergency as a cover and actually intervene and protect their jobs?
Just over 20 seconds, Taoiseach, for a response on that.
He was over time. That's why.
Thanks, Deputy. Yeah. Again, I think everyone in the House knows that these are rhetorical questions. The Deputy asked me, can I give a commitment that this payment won't be ended until the pandemic will end? Does the Deputy know when the pandemic will end? No, you don't. Exactly. So, of course it's impossible to give a commitment. about the pandemic ending when nobody knows when the pandemic will end. It's a rhetorical question, not a serious one, designed to get press coverage and not to get a serious answer.
Deputy Barry.